The elevator doors opened. Vivian Zhou's professional smile froze on her face. Mr. Chin stepped out first, 40-something, gold-rimmed glasses, industry conference acquaintance. But her blood didn't run cold because of him. It was the man behind him. Tailored charcoal suit, cufflinks catching the hallway lights like cold steel. Hair swept back with surgical precision. Nothing like the man she remembered. The one in faded t-shirts, hunched over video games in their shitty rental apartment. But the face she would know in hell. Vivian. It's been a while. Mr. Chin extended his hand, all polished courtesy. This is our new executive president, Damien Shin. You probably haven't met. He just returned from overseas. She stared at Damien Shin's face. 3 years. He stood half a step behind Mr. Chin, looking at her like she was a stranger at a networking event. Ms. Zhou, Damien Shin. He offered his hand, a polite, distant smile. Nothing behind the eyes. Executive President of Shenghui Group. The title hit her brain like a bucket of ice water. Shenghui's valuation, what was it? Series B broke $5 billion 2 years ago. Executive President meant top 3 in the boardroom. Top 3 in an empire. And the Damien Shin in her memory couldn't pay rent. Couldn't hold a job. Spent 2 years living off her salary while she worked herself to the bone. She shook his hand. Her palm was wet. Young and accomplished, Mr. Shin. She heard her own voice come out wrong. Strained. How kind. He pulled his hand back. His eyes swept over her face without stopping. No guilt, no recognition, not even a flicker of we used to know each other. He turned and murmured something to Mr. Chin. The conference room. Vivian sat at the head of the table. They sat across from her. Mia clicked through the presentation, company strengths, case studies, delivery metrics. Vivian turned pages on cue, smiled on cue, paused on cue. Her brain was a war zone. So he made it after the divorce. She'd thought about that possibility. Of course she had. The night she left, she'd thrown the rental keys on the coffee table. Damien, if you could give me one shred of hope, I wouldn't go. He sat on the couch, head down, said nothing. She walked out believing that man would never amount to anything. Now he sat across from her, spinning a Montblanc pen between his fingers, eyes on the projection screen with the cold precision of a surgeon. He was here as the buyer. She was here as the seller. Ms. Zhou's credentials check out. Product displays look solid. Mr. Chin flipped through the documents, smiling. Shall we let Mr. Shin decide the terms? Damien set the pen down, tapped 2 fingers on the table. Your company is 3 years old. Annual revenue of 300 million. Under 40 employees. His voice was flat, clinical. From a volume standpoint, handing over the entire North China distribution rights carries too much risk. He paused. Let the silence breathe. I recommend a quarterly trial contract. Given your current production capacity, a quarterly framework suits both parties. We'll review the numbers before upgrading to annual terms. Vivian's grip tightened around her pen. Quarterly. That meant profit margins slashed to 25% of projections. And it wasn't just the money. The industry would talk. Shenghui doesn't trust Vivian Zhou. They're only giving her table scraps. Every future negotiation would start from that disadvantage. Mr. Shin, our delivery track record speaks for itself. She kept her voice level. Last year's Double 11, we delivered 200 million in orders. Single month. 0 complaints. Damien looked at her. That look. She knew it. The same expression he wore in their rental apartment during every argument. He was the one in the wrong, but he always managed to look at her like she was the one who didn't understand. That was last year. Market conditions have shifted. He spoke slowly, deliberately. I'm not questioning your capabilities. I'm exercising necessary risk control. Mr. Chin stayed quiet. His eyes flicked between them. Vivian felt something rise in her throat. Something between a laugh and a scream. 3 years ago, he was in that apartment saying, Viv, just give me a little more time. Now he sat across from her talking about risk control. She breathed in, swallowed everything down, smiled. Mr. Shin makes a valid point. Quarterly it is. The elevator bank. She walked them out. Professional. Composed. Just before the doors closed, Damien glanced back at her. Something flickered in his eyes, something she couldn't name before the steel panels slid shut. She walked back to her office, closed the door, sat in the dark behind her desk for a long time. Mia knocked, came in beaming. "Ms. Zhou, even though we didn't get the annual contract, the quarterly deal is still a great start." Vivian made a sound that wasn't quite agreement. A quarterly contract covered costs. Barely. The expansion plans would freeze. Half the new hires would have to be cut. That was Damien's welcome back gift. She picked up her phone, scrolled to the bottom of her contacts, found the name she'd never deleted, Damien, the profile picture still a photo from 3 years ago. Her thumb hovered over it. She put the phone down. 2 in the morning. She couldn't sleep, tossed and turned, brain replaying Damien's cold, indifferent face on a loop. He wasn't here to do business. He was here to gloat. The useless man she'd thrown out 3 years ago was now the client she had to grovel before. Of course he'd flex. Show her how the tables had turned. She squeezed her eyes shut. The resentment sat in her chest like a stone. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it. A WeChat message. The sender's name made her pupils shrink. Damien. He'd sent a photo. A document. Shenghui Group North China Strategic Partnership Agreement. Stamped with Shenghui's official seal. Below it, one line of text. The quarterly contract was for show. For Mr. Chen. The annual contract is already signed. I'll have my assistant bring it to your office tomorrow for your seal. She stared at the screen for 5 full seconds. Sat bolt upright. The phone buzzed again. Viv, these 3 years. I owe you an apology. Her hands tightened around the phone. Her heartbeat slammed against her eardrums in the silent bedroom. So he was acting, pressuring her in front of Mr. Chen, then slipping her the real contract in private. Shenghui's annual contract wasn't tens of millions. It was hundreds of millions. He said he owed her an apology. He called her Viv. She stared at the messages. Her mind spun. He came back, as president, with Shenghui's contract. Late night apology. Her old nickname. Everything pointed in one direction. He wanted her back. She breathed deep. Turned the phone off. Lay back down. The corner of her mouth lifted. Damien Shen, you think you're bestowing a favor? 3 years ago, when she needed him most, he lay there doing nothing. Now he thought one contract could buy his way back in? Vivian Zhou clawed her way out of the mud. No amount of money could push her back down. Tomorrow morning, she'd go to the office. Reject the annual contract. Reject the quarterly contract. Let him see. Without Damien Shen's money, she was still standing. The next morning, Vivian arrived 30 minutes early. The elevator doors opened. Something was wrong. The receptionist saw her and jumped like she'd seen a ghost. Shot up from her seat. Mouth opened. No words came out. What is it? Vivian frowned. Ms. Zhou. The girl swallowed. Voice hollow. You have visitors. Waiting in your office. Who? They arrived early. Several of them. Mia's in there with them. She dodged the question. Eyes darted everywhere except Vivian's face. Vivian's frown deepened. She strode toward her office. Through the open floor workspace. Every employee looked up. Every single one. Their expressions carried something she'd never seen before. Shock, tension, and a thin thread of something like pity. Her stomach dropped. What the hell? The office door was ajar. She pushed it open. Saw who was inside. Stopped dead. 3 people on the sofa. Far left, she recognized him. Kyle Zhao, Shenghui's chief legal counsel. Seen him at an industry summit once. Middle, a middle-aged man in a government-style jacket. Somewhere familiar. Couldn't place him. Far right, Damien Shen. He wore a smoke-gray suit today. Legs crossed. Leaning back. Holding a cup of coffee Mia had poured him. Relaxed like this office was his living room. Mia stood by the tea station. Face white as paper. Clutching a folder. Knuckles pale. Ms. Zhou. Finally. Damien raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. Your office brew isn't bad. Vivian didn't move from the doorway. Her gaze swept from Damien to Kyle to the middle-aged man. The unease in her chest swelled, hot and fast. Chief Legal Counsel.
First thing in the morning.
Ambush in her own office. This didn't look like a contract signing. Mr. Shin. It's early. What's this about? She forced her voice steady. Damien didn't answer. He tilted his head toward Kyle Zhao.
Kyle stood.
Adjusted his glasses. Pulled 2 documents from his briefcase. Held them out. Ms. Zhou, this is Shenghui Group's full acquisition agreement for your company. 1 equity transfer agreement. 1 asset liquidation list. Please review. She took the documents. Her fingers trembled. Acquisition. Full acquisition. She flipped to the first page. Scanned down. The acquisition price. 20 million. Her brain went white. 20 million? Her company pulled 300 million in annual revenue. 40 employees. Stable market share in North China. Conservative valuation was at least 150 million. 20 million wasn't an acquisition. It was robbery. 20 million? She looked up at Damien. Her voice cracked. Mr. Shin, tell me this is a joke. Damien set his coffee down, rose to his feet, hands in his pockets, walked toward her. He was a full head taller. Looking down at her, the pressure made it hard to breathe. It's not a joke. His voice was soft. Only she could hear. That quarterly contract yesterday?
The bait.
You think I sent you those messages last night out of kindness? I gave you time to get happy. Time to think I wanted you back. Time to lower your guard. Her nails dug into the paper.
Creased it.
Vivian, I didn't come back to win you over.
He leaned in.
Lips nearly brushing her ear. Voice light as a needle. I came to show you the way you treated me 3 years ago. That's exactly how I'll treat you now. Your company, your work, everything you're proud of. I can take it, just like that. He straightened, pulled a USB drive from his inside pocket, held it up between them. You think you built a 300 million company in 3 years on your own? Check your angel investor. Check where that seed money really came from. Then check your biggest clients from the last 2 years. Find out who was behind them. He smiled, slipped the USB into her jacket pocket, leaned close again. You thought you were the one who left me. The truth is, the day you left, I was already Shenghui's vice president. Every major deal you've closed in the past 3 years, I paved the road. Your life has never been separate from me. He stepped back, adjusted his cuff, smiled lightly. You have 3 days to consider the acquisition agreement. Of course, you can reject it. He paused. Reject it, and Shenghui immediately terminates all cooperation with your company and issues a risk alert to the entire industry. You know what that means. She knew. Of course she knew. Shenghui wrote the rules in this industry. 1 risk alert, and every client would cancel their contracts. Within a month, her company would vanish from the market. Damien turned, walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle, looked back. Something in his eyes. Something she couldn't parse. Triumph, but not quite. Hatred, but with something else underneath. Almost forgot. Introductions. He gestured toward the middle-aged man on the sofa, the one who hadn't said a word. This is Richard Zhang from Horizon Capital, your angel investor. The man gave her an awkward nod. Eyes dodged. Couldn't hold contact. Thank you for your years of support, Mr. Zhang. Damien smiled at him, then pulled the door open and walked out. Kyle Zhao muttered, "Good day," and followed. Richard Zhang was the last to rise. He paused beside her, mouth opened, closed, finally squeezed out. "Ms. Zhou, I'm sorry." Head down.
Gone.
The door clicked shut. Vivian stood rooted to the floor. Acquisition documents crumpled in her grip, blood running cold from scalp to soles. Mia approached carefully, voice trembling. "Ms. Zhou, are you okay?" She didn't answer. She stared at the documents, at the line that read acquisition price. 20 million. Cold, printed, irreversible. Damien's voice echoed in her skull. "Your life has never been separate from me." The angel investor. How eager he'd looked at her back then. Those big clients. How easily they'd signed. One after another. No objections. She thought she'd found luck. Found benefactors. It was all Damien. 3 years. She thought she'd crawled out of the dirt on her own. She was a puppet on strings. Every move under his hand. She slammed the documents onto her desk, braced her palms on the edge, forced air into her lungs. Her chest pressed tight. Couldn't pull breath in. Couldn't push it out. Her phone buzzed.
Damien.
One line. I have complete documentation of your connections to all clients, suppliers, and investors. Sign within 3 days. Don't make me do something worse. She stared at the screen, bit down on her lip, tasted iron. Mia still stood there.
Lost.
Helpless. Vivian turned the phone face down, closed her eyes. One thought. Vivian Zhou, you're really finished this time. She didn't leave the office that day.
Blinds down.
Lights off. Alone in the dark. USB drive plugged into her laptop. One folder. She opened it. Felt her body plunge into ice water. 3 pages of dense spreadsheets. Her angel investor, Richard Zhang, Horizon Capital. 7 large transfers between his personal accounts and Damien Shen's. Timing, exactly 3 months before she got her seed funding. Her first major client, Mingtai Industrial's procurement director. His son worked at Shenghui Group's overseas division. Start date, 6 full months before she signed the Mingtai contract. Second client, third,
Fourth.
every single deal, she thought she'd won on merit. Everyone had a thread. Every thread led to the same man, her ex-husband, Shenghui Group's executive president, Damien Shen. The last page. A scanned handwritten note. Vivian, you thought you could live without me. Look how well you've done.
Such a shame.
Your success. Every bit of it came from me. She yanked the USB out, gripped it in her fist. The metal casing burned warm against her palm. Silence. Just the HVAC hum. And her breathing. She remembered that night. 3 years ago. The rental apartment. She came home past midnight from overtime. Damien at his computer. Playing games. Takeout containers piled on the desk. Dishes in the sink. 3 days. Unwashed. She slapped the divorce papers on his keyboard. Damien, we're getting divorced. He didn't turn around. Just give me more time. She laughed. Time for what? Time to turn 29 into 30? 30 into 31? Look at yourself. What have you done since graduation? 3 failed startups. Fired from 2 jobs. The last 2 years, you don't even leave the apartment. I've supported you for 2 years. Do you understand that? He finally turned, eyes red, like he'd been crying, or hadn't slept in days. I'm working on something important. She didn't bother responding. That was his line.
2 years of it.
Important project. What project?
Can't say.
Progress? Almost there.
Money?
It'll come. Later. She'd heard that word too many times. It had lost all meaning. Just sign.
She said.
Stop dragging this out.
He signed. Slowly.
Each stroke deliberate. Like he was carving something. She took the papers. Opened the door.
Left.
No sound behind her. He didn't chase. Didn't plead. Didn't even say goodbye. She thought, good. It's over. The day they finalized the divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau, she walked away without looking back. And he, on that exact day, was already Shenghui's vice president. A chill spread through her body. If what he said was true, if he already had that position when she left, why didn't he say anything? Why sign the divorce papers? Why let her believe he was worthless? She pressed her palms into her face, nails against her forehead, forced herself to replay every detail of those 2 years. Was he genuinely broken? Or was he acting the whole time? If he was really broken, how did he snap back to vice president the day after she left? If he was acting, why? For what possible reason? She couldn't make it fit. Her phone lit up.
Mia.
Ms. Zhou, Mr. Chen's office, just called. The quarterly contract is on hold. Pending further notice. Another message. Mingtai Industrial's directly called too. Said next quarter's renewal isn't urgent. They need internal evaluation. A third. 2 suppliers' contacts just went dark. Not answering calls. Not replying to messages. Her hands started shaking. Damien was moving. This wasn't talk. She stood, pulled the blinds open. Dark outside. The open office lights were still on. A few employees at their desks. No one working. Everyone sneaking glances toward her door. She walked out. Every head snapped back to its screen, pretending to be busy. Everyone go home. Her voice came out hoarse. Go. No one moved.
Now.
They rose, shuffled, packed up, heads down. Someone glanced back at her. The look in their eyes, she couldn't hold it.
Pity.
Like she was already dead. When they were gone, she sat alone in the empty office, scrolled her phone contacts.
Top to bottom.
Again. Who could she call? The angel investor? Damien's man. The big clients? Tied to Shenghui. A lawyer? Damien had all the evidence. She'd lose. The media? No proof. That was defamation. Every path. Dead end. Her phone buzzed.
Damien.
Day one is almost over. 2 left. She stared at the words, then typed back. Damien, what do you actually want? Instant reply. I want you back. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Before she could process it, the next message hit. Back. Begging. She hurled the phone onto the sofa.
Bastard.
Absolute bastard. Day 2. She didn't go to the office. Her apartment. Curtains drawn. Phone on airplane mode. No one in. She needed to think. What was Damien's real goal? If it was pure revenge, he could have crushed her company long ago. Shenghui had that power. 1 industry blacklist.
Done.
No need for this elaborate theater. But he didn't do that. He showed up as president, pressured her in negotiations, then sent the late-night apology, gave her false hope, showed up the next morning and shattered that hope in person, showed her every success was his gift. This wasn't business retaliation. This was playing with prey. He didn't want her company. He wanted her reaction, her collapse, her rage, her no way out. He was enjoying the process. When that realization clicked, nausea rolled through her stomach. The acquisition agreement lay on the coffee table. That 20 million number. Red as blood.
She stared at it.
Something shifted in her brain.
Wait.
Something was wrong. Damien said he was Shenghui's vice president the day she left. But Shenghui was in hypergrowth those 2 years. VP-level executives had board seats, held significant equity, participated in every major decision. Those positions didn't materialize out of nowhere. She'd researched Shenghui's founder, Lucas Liu, industry titan, never let outsiders touch core management. How did Damien, no background, no public business history, walk straight into a VP role? Was he lying? Or was there something she didn't know? She opened her laptop, searched Damien Shun plus Shenghui Group. Barely any results. Shenghui's official site had his photo and bio, but the bio was stripped to nothing. Damien Shen, executive president, oversees strategic investments.
No alma mater.
No career history. No start date. Just those cold 2 lines. A normal group executive didn't hide their background, unless someone was deliberately burying his information. She dug deeper. Found one scrap, a financial report from 2 years ago. A single throwaway line about Shenghui's funding history. Sources indicate Shenghui received early-stage angel funding from an individual investor whose identity remains undisclosed. Speculation links this investor to current group executives. Individual investor. Current executive. She closed the laptop. Heart pounding. If that report was about Damien, everything snapped into place. He wasn't a hired VP. He was Shenghui's earliest investor. He might even be Shenghui's true owner. The thought hit like lightning, left her hands cold. If he owned Shenghui, then everything he'd done over these 3 years wasn't revenge. He was building a bigger game, and she hadn't even touched the edges of it yet. The doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole.
Mia.
Face panicked, lips pale, finger jabbing the bell nonstop. Phone clutched in her other hand, knuckles white. Miss Zhou, are you there? Something terrible happened. Vivian opened the door. Mia stumbled in, shoved her phone up to Vivian's face. The screen made her blood stop. A recording. Damien's voice. Posted online. Over 2 million views. You thought you were the one who left me. The truth is, the day you left, I was already Shenghui's vice president. Every major deal you've closed in the past 3 years, I paved the road. Your life has never been separate from me. Just those 2 clips. Enough. Enough for the world to know. This company's CEO was propped up by her ex-husband. The comments were a flood. Damn. Ex-husband still paving her road like a simp. What kind of hold does this woman have? So her whole company is a front. Ex-husband feeding her resources. And she's out here acting like a girl boss. Now the whole industry knows she's a Nepo ex-wife. Who's gonna sign with her after this? Shenghui Prince's ex. This is better than a drama. Vivian's hands shook. The phone trembled in her grip. Damien released the recording. He released it. The things he whispered in her ear. The things she thought were private cruelty. He was recording the whole time. Every step was calculated. From the moment he walked into her company, she was already in his net. Mia's eyes were red-rimmed, voice thick with tears. Ms. Zhou, 6 clients have called this morning, suspending cooperation. They said they don't want to do business with a puppet. Too unstable. Vivian didn't speak. And 3 suppliers are demanding early payment. They're afraid our cash flow will break. The bank called too, asking for updates on the Shenghui acquisition.
Her phone rang. Damien.
She watched his name pulse on the screen. Felt like a mouse pinned under a cat's paw. He could tear her apart whenever he wanted. She answered. Vivian. His voice came through.
Calm.
Measured. I didn't release the recording, but whether you believe me, that doesn't matter anymore. A pause. But I can tell you one thing. The person who leaked it was sitting next to me last night. Richard Zhang. Your angel investor. He's afraid you'll reject the acquisition. Afraid his investment will evaporate. So he made you toxic. Left you no choice. Her hand gripped the phone, barely holding it. Everyone in the industry has heard that recording. Everyone knows how your company was built. You think your competitors will let this opportunity pass? You think your clients will renew?
You think your employees, he paused,
will show up tomorrow? One more pause. Your cards have been ripped up. All of them. She opened her mouth, throat clogged with cotton. Sign the acquisition. You get a clean exit. Don't sign. Total destruction. The call ended. The screen went dark, reflected her own face. She'd never seen herself like this. Like someone held underwater, struggling to break the surface. Ice above. Can't punch through. Mia spoke. Voice small. Ms. Zhou. Maybe just sign? 20 million is still something. Better than losing everything. Vivian turned to look at her. Mia stepped back at the expression on her face. You think I should sign? Mia's lips moved. Nothing came out. Eyes wet. Vivian let out a sound. Not quite a laugh. I'm not signing. He wants me to beg. That's not happening. Mia's voice cracked. But what else can you do? The clients are gone. Suppliers want blood. The bank is pressing. We have nothing left. Enough. The shout surprised even herself. Silence. Vivian walked to the window, pulled the curtain back. The city's skyline glittered outside. 3 years ago, she started with nothing. Built everything brick by brick. Thought hard work meant control over her own life. Turns out she was just a piece on someone else's board. She pressed her forehead against the cold glass, closed her eyes.
Her phone buzzed again.
A text message. The sender's name made her lungs seize. It was Mr. Liu, the Civil Affairs Bureau officer who'd processed her divorce 3 years ago. She'd kept his number. 8 words. The stamp. It's not real. She stared at those 8 words. Brain disconnected. Blank for several seconds. What stamp? What wasn't real? She called back immediately. 2 rings. He picked up. Voice low. Tense. Ms. Zhou. I debated a long time before contacting you. He cleared his throat. It's hard to explain, but I handled your divorce paperwork 3 years ago. There's a detail I've never forgotten. Go on. Her grip on the phone tightened. Your divorce certificate. The embossed stamp. The serial number doesn't match. I found the discrepancy when archiving, but before I could verify, your file was transferred out. Transfer order had City Archives letterhead. I didn't think much of it then. He paused. A few days ago, I heard about your situation. I went back through our backup records. Confirmed it. That stamp serial number doesn't exist in the system. Never did. Vivian's heart compressed. A fist around it. If the stamp is fake, that means... It means your divorce procedure was never legally completed. He said it slowly, each word deliberate. Your marriage, legally, is still valid. You never divorced. You never did. The phone nearly slipped from her palm. She grabbed the window frame. Fingers white-knuckled. Never divorced. She signed the papers. Went to the bureau. Got the red booklet. Thought she'd severed everything from that useless man forever. But the stamp was fake. The file was removed. All of it. Arranged. Damien never intended to let her go. Not 3 years ago. Not ever. He let her sign. Let her believe she was free. Then worked behind the scenes to make sure that freedom never legally existed. He was Shenghui's true owner. He controlled the entire industry's lifelines. He could destroy her without breaking a sweat. But he didn't. He did all of this, the investment setup, the client pipeline, the elaborate trap, not to crush her. But for today, her knees went weak. She slid down the wall, crouched on the floor, phone pressed to her ear. Mr. Liu was still talking. She couldn't hear him anymore. The fragments in her brain clicked together. Why he signed the divorce papers. Why he didn't tell her he was with Shenghui. Why he pressured her in the negotiation room. Why he apologized late at night, then destroyed the hope the next morning. He wasn't seeking revenge. He was cornering her, backing her into the wall, leaving her no exit, forcing her to turn back to him. Because only when she had nothing left, only then could he become her only choice. He never wanted her company. He wanted her, from beginning to end. She surged to her feet. Knee slammed the coffee table. Pain shot through her leg. She ignored it. Mr. Liu, where is that file now? Transferred out. The transfer order number, I checked. Also fake. The whole thing was done clean. If I hadn't kept backup records, no one would ever know. She hung up, sat on the sofa, palms slick with cold sweat. Dark outside now. 2 days without food or sleep. Stomach hollow and aching. Mind sharper than it had ever been. Damien said Richard Zhang released the recording. Not him.
She believed that.
Because he didn't need to. He was holding too many cards. Fake divorce. Behind-the-scenes control. Industry blacklist. Public opinion siege. Every link had a trapdoor. Every exit was sealed. He left her one path. The path to his door. But he still made one miscalculation. He thought she'd break. Break so completely she'd have no choice but to crawl back to him. He wanted her body and soul, dependent, surrendered, kneeling before him, admitting these 3 years were arrogance, that he'd given her everything. He forgot who she was. Vivian Zhou, the woman who left with nothing and built 300 million in 3 years. The woman who never shed a tear through the hardest times. Clients could leave. The company could collapse. Everything could go to zero.
But Neil?
Never. She picked up her phone. Sent Damien a message. The agreement. Don't need 3 days. I'll come to your office tomorrow and sign. Instant reply. Made up your mind? She looked at those 3 words. Let out a small smile.
Typed.
Made up my mind. See you tomorrow. She tossed the phone aside. Walked to her study. Opened the safe. Company seal. Legal person seal. A thick black notebook. The ledger she'd started the day she left Damien. Every revenue source. Every client background. Every contract copy. Her habit. Always keep a spare card. The angel investment. Richard Zhang sent her an email before signing. One sentence she'd never forgotten. This money is me betting on you personally. Nothing to do with anyone else. She'd saved the screenshot. For 3 years. Mingtai Industrials Director Li. First meeting. He'd had a few drinks. Let something slip. Vivian, I'm not working with you because someone made a call. I genuinely think you're solid. She didn't record him, but 3 industry peers sat at the table. 3 witnesses. She wasn't holding nothing. She just hadn't played her hand yet. The next morning, 10 o'clock, Shenghui Group headquarters. 42 stories of glass and steel. Vivian stood before the revolving doors. Looked up. Sunlight hit the curtain wall. Blinding white glare. Mia stood behind her, gripping the briefcase. Fingers tight, veins visible on the backs of her hands. Nervous. Vivian glanced at her. Mia nodded hard, dark circles under her eyes. Sleepless night. Obvious. Don't be. Today, they're the nervous ones. Not us. She pushed through the doors. The lobby receptionist saw her. Face flickered.
Grab the phone.
Dialed internal. Vivian walked straight to the elevator. Pressed the top floor.
Doors closed.
Her own face stared back from the mirrored panels. Light makeup. Covered the dark circles and pallor. Fresh suit. Sharp cut. Heels clicking against the floor. Crisp and steady. She looked like she was here to negotiate, not surrender. The elevator opened. Damien's secretary was already waiting. Suit immaculate. Smile standardized. Ms. Zhou, Mr. Shen is expecting you. The corridor stretched long. Dark gray carpet. Both walls lined with framed photos of Shenghui's landmark acquisitions. She stopped before one. 5 years ago. Shenghui's first acquisition. The signing photo. The man at the center wasn't founder Lucas Liu. It was a young man. Back to the camera. Tall frame. Slightly narrow shoulders. Right hand at his side. Simple wedding band on the ring finger. She recognized the ring. $30 at a night market.
Silver.
Inscribed inside. SYZW.
Damien.
5 years ago, he was already Shenghui's decision maker. And 5 years ago, he was in that rental apartment playing games. Worn out t-shirt. Eating takeout she brought home. Not even looking at her. He performed for everyone, including her. She pulled her gaze away.
Kept walking.
The secretary opened the office door. The room was obscenely large. Full wall of floor-to-ceiling windows. The entire city sprawled below. Damien sat behind a massive wooden desk. Skyline at his back. Sunlight streaming behind him. Silhouetted. Expression unreadable. 3 people sat across from him. Mr. Chen.
Kyle Zhao.
And Richard Zhang, the man who leaked the recording. All 3 looked up when she entered. 3 different reactions. Mr. Chen guarded. Kyle, professionally blank. Richard, guilty. Eyes dodging. Couldn't hold her gaze. Damien stood. Walked around the desk. Smile on his lips. You came. She walked past him. Sat on the sofa. Mia placed the briefcase on her lap. Stood beside her. Here to sign. Vivian pulled the 2 acquisition documents from her bag. Laid them on the coffee table. Terms reviewed. Price unchanged. I'll sign. Something flickered in Damien's eyes. He hadn't expected her to be this direct. However, she lifted her gaze to Richard Zhang. Before I sign, a few words for Mr. Zhang. Richard's shoulders twitched. Almost imperceptible. Ms. Zhou, our matter. Don't be nervous. She smiled.
Light.
Controlled. Just one question. When you invested in my angel round, you wrote something in an email. Does it still stand? Richard's face changed color. You wrote, "This money is me betting on you personally. Nothing to do with anyone else." She quoted it word for word. If it has nothing to do with anyone else, why did you release that recording last night? Silence filled the office. Damien's eyebrows moved. He turned to Richard. Something cold in his gaze. Mr. Zhang, you released it. Richard's face flushed crimson. Sweat beaded at his temples. Mr. Shin, I was afraid she wouldn't sign. Afraid my investment would be lost. Did you forget that money came from my accounts? Damien cut him off. Voice like a blade. What gives you the right to make decisions for me? Richard choked. Lips trembling. No words. Vivian watched from the sofa. Strange calm settled over her. All right. She pushed the acquisition agreement forward.
Picked up the pen.
Flipped to the signature page. Signed her name. Cap back on. Voice soft. Agreement signed. Company's yours. Mr. Chen and Kyle exchanged glances. Relief. Richard was still wiping sweat, hands shaking. Damien watched her, something complex in his eyes. The wariness of a hunter watching prey walk willingly into the cage. Too smooth, too easy. But before that, one thing I forgot to verify. She pulled another paper from her briefcase. A printed copy of a marriage registration archive. Mr. Liu had sent it last night. She laid it on top of the acquisition agreement. Fingertip on the paper. Slid it toward Damien. Mr. Shen, can you confirm? Is what's written on this archive accurate? Damien looked down. His expression froze. The mask of calm control, absolute command, cracked. A hairline fracture. The stamp is fake. Vivian pressed her finger on the red stamp on the photocopy. Voice steady, like she was reading meeting minutes. 3 years ago, the divorce certificate you showed me, the embossed stamp serial number doesn't exist in the Civil Affairs Bureau system. The corresponding file was removed with a fake transfer order. That order's serial number? Also fake. Mr. Chen's teacup clinked against the saucer. Kyle Zhao adjusted his glasses. The professional blankness finally cracked. Eyebrows lifted a fraction. Richard Zhang had stopped wiping sweat. Mouth hanging open. A fish thrown onto the bank. Ms. Zhou, I had no idea about any of this, Richard stammered. This has nothing to do with me. No one's talking to you. She didn't even glance at him. Her gaze pinned to Damien's face. Damien stood in place, backlit. The light cut his expression into light and shadow halves. She couldn't read his eyes, but she saw his hand at his side. Fingers curled slightly, like he wanted to form a fist, then forced himself to release. So, he spoke, voice lower, rougher. What's your point? My point is, Damien, you made a mistake. She flipped the paper over. Another page on the back. A legal clause she'd found and printed in the early hours of morning. According to Civil Code Article 1049, divorce is only finalized upon completion of divorce registration and receipt of divorce certificate. Since the stamp is fake, the registration was never completed, which means legally, we are still married. She stood, braced her palms on the coffee table, leaned forward. It doesn't matter if you're Shenghui's executive president or its true owner. What matters is this. Legally, all assets in your name, including your full equity stake in Shenghui Group, half of it belongs to me. Mr. Chen's teacup hit the floor. Porcelain shattered. The sound exploded through the silence. Kyle Zhao shot to his feet. Professional mask completely gone. Voice pitched wrong. Mr. Shen, is she saying? Hold on. Damien raised a hand. Stopped Kyle cold. He stared at Vivian. She stared back. The office was silent. Just the HVAC hum. Richard Zhang's ragged breathing. Then Damien laughed. Not loud. Something unreadable in it. Self-mockery, maybe. Or something long-planned finally coming to pass. Viv. Her old name. Spoken soft. You think I didn't know the stamp was fake? The words went through her spine like a needle. Cold spread from her scalp to her soles. What does that mean? Her voice tightened. He walked around the desk. Stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows. Back to the city. Sunlight gilding his silhouette. That stamp. I had it switched. The divorce file transfer. I arranged it. Your friend, Mr. Liu, still has that backup record because I let him keep it. You think you found all this on your own. Her fingers went numb. Vivian, from the day you left me, you've been walking a road I paved. Your investor was my man. Your clients were my arrangements. Your company grew on the resources I fed it. And the truth you're most proud of uncovering, the thing you think you found with your own intelligence, I left that for you to find. He turned around. The backlight framed his smile. Something different in it now. Not triumph. Not mockery. Exhaustion. 3 years of exhaustion. Hidden. Finally released. I've been waiting for you to discover this. 3 years. I hinted to Mr. Liu so many times. Told him to contact you earlier, but he was too cautious. Waited until today. He walked back, stopped across the coffee table, looked down at her. You finally figured it out. Took longer than I expected. Her nails bit into her palms. No words.
So now,
You know the truth. Our marriage is still legally valid. You're my wife. Half of everything I own is yours. So he bent down, braced his hands on the coffee table, face close enough that she could see herself reflected in his pupils. Will you stay because of half my fortune? A pause. Or will you, for the same reason, want to leave me even more? She looked at him. This face, familiar and alien at once. The useless man in the rental apartment. The man who'd manipulated an entire industry's chessboard. Overlapped. Merged. One and the same. He wasn't an ex-husband seeking revenge. He was a man who'd spent 3 years constructing a labyrinth just to ask one question. You're insane. She heard herself say it. Maybe. He didn't deny it. Straightened up. Adjusted his cuffs. Mr. Chun and Kyle Zhao stood frozen.
didn't dare breathe.
Richard Zhang had collapsed into the sofa, boneless. The three of them came here this morning expecting a clean acquisition signing. Instead, they'd walked into a marital implosion.
No.
Worse than that. A man spending 3 years building a maze for his ex-wife. You said you waited 3 years for me to find out on my own. Her breathing steadied. You could have kept me from ever knowing. You faked the stamp, transferred the files, made everything seamless. Why leave a backup record for Mr. Liu to find? Damien didn't answer immediately. He walked to the windows, back to her. The line of his shoulder blades pressed against his suit jacket. The same silhouette as in that 5-year-old acquisition photo. Because if you never knew the truth, my assets meant nothing to you. To claim half, you first had to know you had the right. His voice came from the window, quieter. So, I had to let you find it, but not tell you directly. If I told you outright, you wouldn't believe me. You'd think it was another manipulation. You had to discover it yourself to believe it was real.
She listened to his logic.
Stomach churning with absurdity. So, your grand plan, this whole 3-year maze, was just to show me I have the right to half your assets? Yes.
He turned.
The backlight broke across his shoulder. She finally saw his eyes clearly. No triumph. No calculation. Exhaustion. And something held back. Pressed down. Almost spilling over. Pleading. Vivian, I didn't just come back for revenge. 3 years ago, when you left, you said it was because I gave you no hope. So now I'm showing you. I have money. More than you can imagine. But this money, to you, it's something you tracked down yourself. Not a gift from me. He stepped closer. So now you can choose. You can stay because of half my assets. That half is yours by right. Or you can leave, because you genuinely discovered the truth on your own. You, by your own ability, grabbed my lifeline. I'm not just giving you money. I'm giving you the ability to win against me. Use that to defeat me, or use it to come back to me. Your choice. Her breath stopped. That was it. The whole elaborate maze. All of it. For this. He wanted her to win. He wanted her to hold enough cards so he wouldn't be a benefactor towering over her. He wanted this relationship to be an equal negotiation. 3 years ago, in that rental apartment, she said, Damien, if you could give me one shred of hope, I wouldn't go. 3 years later, in the president's office, he told her with a 3-year chess game, now I'm giving you hope. Not my hope. Yours. You found the truth yourself. You grabbed my lifeline yourself. You're standing here with enough leverage to demand any terms, including leaving him. He was giving her the ability to leave him. She stood before that massive desk,
Palms sweating.
heart pounding against her ribcage. Everyone in the room stared at her. Mr. Chen's eyes were saucers. Kyle Zhao's lips pressed tight, expression complicated. Richard Zhang's sweat dripped off his chin, hit the carpet,
Drop by drop.
Mia stood behind her, speechless, mouth open, eyes red. Vivian took a deep breath.
Tapped the desk. Damien.
You're right. I can choose now. He watched her, the tension in his eyes hidden deep. But she saw it. You built this massive game because you were afraid I'd stay out of pity, right? You thought if you told me directly that we never divorced, the only reason I'd stay was your money. So you made me discover it. Made me win. Made me feel like I had control. You were afraid I'd feel diminished. His Adam's apple moved. You guessed correctly,
she said.
if you told me directly, used money to crush me, I would have only wanted to leave faster. Because what I hate most in this world is being managed. Damien's expression darkened for an instant, but she picked up the acquisition agreement from the coffee table, opened to the signature page, tore it cleanly in two. The sound of ripping paper. Sharp.
Clear.
Richard Zhang launched off the sofa, voice strangled. Ms. Xiaoyu, I'm not selling my company. She tossed the torn pieces on the table. This company is 3 years of my blood. 3 people to 40. Small contracts to 300 million. Whoever supplied the clients. The work was mine. The team was mine. Every hole in the road, I filled myself. This is mine. No one takes it.
Damien didn't speak, didn't move.
As for half your assets, she met his eyes. I don't want them. Mr. Chen sucked in air. I don't want your money. I don't want your shares. Because that's not what I'm after. If you really want me to stay, what I want is the explanation you've owed me for 3 years. She stepped forward, tilted her chin up, close enough to smell the faint pine scent on his suit. 3 years ago, the man in that rental apartment. Was that real? Or was that an act? He was silent. Long silence. Clouds drifted past the windows, covered the harsh sun. The office light softened, fell across his angular face. For the first time, she could see him clearly. Half real, half act. He finally spoke, voice hoarse. Shenghui was a project I invested in my sophomore year. I bet everything on a dying company. Won the bet. But the cost was, I couldn't tell anyone, including you. The competitors were hunting for me back then. If my identity got exposed, they'd target you. I had to play the burnout. Wait for you to get fed up and leave on your own. He paused. But I didn't expect, when you actually left, how much it would destroy me. So you planned all of this?
She asked. Yes.
After you left, I spent 3 years pulling you back into my world. Not through my identity, through your own path. I needed you to reach me on your own. He looked down at her, a thin layer of moisture in his eyes. Vivian, you're the proudest person I've ever known. I wanted to keep you, but I couldn't let your pride get hurt. So I chose the stupidest way, let you win. Win until staying felt like your own choice. Not my arrangement. Rain began outside. Water streaked down the floor-to-ceiling windows, cut the city lights into flowing ribbons of color. She stood in this office overlooking the entire city, looking at the man who'd spent 3 years building a game around her. And something in her chest shifted, not moved. Something deeper, the feeling of being truly seen.
Damien.
Yeah, you're sick. He paused, then laughed. The first real laugh she'd seen in 3 years. Not the controlled smile from the negotiation room. Not the predatory smirk from yesterday. The laugh from when he was 27. The first time she saw him at the university gates. A little embarrassed.
Boyish.
Real. Unguarded. You're right. I'm sick.
He paused.
So, I have one more thing to tell you. One more thing. She pulled back half a step, watching him warily. With this man, one more thing was never small. Behind her, Mia let out a near groan. Today's cascade of reversals had broken her. Mr. Chen and Kyle Zhao had stopped reacting entirely, like robots on pause. Richard Zhang was back to melting into the sofa, handkerchief over his face. Done understanding anything. Damien reached into his inside jacket pocket, pulled out an envelope. Plain craft paper. No letterhead. No seal. Shabby next to the gold-embossed acquisition folder. You tore up the acquisition, so you should see this too. He placed the envelope in her hand.
Light.
Just a few sheets inside. She opened it, pulled out the documents. First page. Shenghui Group letterhead. Bold heading. Shenghui Group Equity. Holding agreement. She scanned fast. Heart accelerating. Party A. Damien Shen. Party B. A man named Lucas Liu. That name, she knew it. Shenghui's founder. The public face. The Mr. Liu everyone referred to. The agreement was explicit. Of Damien Shin's total equity in Xinhui Group, 60% was held in trust by Lucas Liu. Party B signature. Lucas Liu. Fingerprint. Party A signature. Damien Shin. Fingerprint. Date. 6 years ago. 6 years ago, when I invested in Xinhui, I was too young. Not convenient to show my face publicly. So I found Lucas Liu to hold my shares. I held the majority. He held a minority. To the outside world, he was the founder. Only a handful knew the real equity structure. Damien's voice was calm, like he was explaining something irrelevant to himself. But the holding agreement has a supplementary clause. She flipped to page 2, scanned to the bottom. Her fingers tightened. Should Party B, actively or passively, commit any act detrimental to Party A's interests, the equity holding relationship shall automatically dissolve. Party B must unconditionally return all held equity to Party A. This clause is permanently effective. Lucas Liu went behind my back 3 years ago, contacted our competitors, tried to push me out.
He thought I didn't know.
Thought the holding agreement was symbolic. What he didn't know, I had documentation of every meeting, every communication. Damien pulled another file from his drawer, placed it next to the holding agreement. Last year, I initiated formal legal proceedings to reclaim the equity. The case was heard for a full year. The court's ruling came down this morning. He nodded toward the envelope. She pulled out the last sheet. A court judgment.
Photocopy.
Key section highlighted in red. Every word sharp. Defendant Lucas Liu must, within 30 days of this judgment taking effect, return all Xinhui Group shares held in trust to plaintiff Damien Shin. Failure to comply will result in mandatory enforcement. Date. Today. This morning. So. She looked up, brain reassembling all the fragments in real time. Your current position isn't just executive president. Once the court ruling takes effect, you are Xinhui Group's actual controller and absolute majority shareholder. Before, it was hidden. Now, it's legitimate. Yes,
He said.
the office plunged into its third silence. Mr. Chen's expression had exceeded shock. His mouth was open. Adam's apple bobbed several times before sound emerged. Voice like sandpaper. Mr. Shin, then Mr. Liu. As of today, there is no Mr. Liu. Damien didn't even glance back. Tone casual, like discussing the weather. All his group positions have been revoked by the board. Transition starts this afternoon. Kyle, Zhao bolted up. Too fast. Knee slammed the coffee table. Bone thud. He ignored the pain. Phone already in hand. Heading for the door. I need to verify the judgment original. Go ahead. Damien didn't turn. Kyle yanked the door open. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Fading. Cut off by the elevator closing. Vivian sat on the sofa. Judgment copy in her hands. Fingers trembling. Slightly. All the pieces. He wasn't Shenghui's executive. He was Shenghui's creator. He wasn't here to negotiate business. He was the owner of the entire empire. And everything, investors, clients, the recording, the acquisition, the fake divorce stamp, all of it was under an even larger strategy. While reclaiming absolute control of Xinhui, he was simultaneously building a structure to bring her back. Business annihilation. Personal chessboard. Both at once. This man was playing 2 games. And winning both. So you planned this from 3 years ago. Collecting evidence against Lucas, Liu, on one side. Pulling me back into your world on the other. She set the judgment down. Voice quiet. How much have you kept from me? A lot. No avoidance. No deflection. But the last piece you just saw. No more. From now on. The rain intensified, drumming against the windows, like fingers tapping glass. She sat back down. This time, not in the guest chair. She walked around the desk, sat in Damien's chair. The wide leather seat was still warm, his body heat. She leaned back, swiveled, faced the full wall of windows. Rain over the city. Damien stood before the desk, watching her, didn't stop her. The corner of his mouth even lifted slightly. Mr. Chin had completely lost the ability to speak. He'd probably never seen anyone sit in Damien Shin's chair in all his years at Xinhui. Richard Zhang had his handkerchief over his entire face, muttering something, probably realizing the stupidest thing he'd ever done was get between this couple. Mia stood by the sofa, expression gone from shattered to blank to something like dazed awe. 3 years as Vivian's assistant. Thought she knew her boss. Today she realized she knew nothing. All right. Vivian straightened up in Damien's chair, folded her hands on the desk. Let's talk business. Go ahead. He stood before the desk, posture correct, like a subordinate awaiting instructions. First, the acquisition agreement has been torn up. The company is mine. Non-negotiable. I don't need you to backfill an annual contract for me. I'll earn it myself. What I want from Shenghui's supplier database is a fair competition entry ticket. No special treatment.
Can you do that?
Yes.
Second,
Those recordings, client lists, interest connection documentation, all destroyed. Every client I close from now on will be closed on my own ability, not because Damien Shin made a call behind the scenes. Handled tonight. Third, she paused, breathed deep, spoke the most important piece. You spent 3 years building this. You wanted me to hold enough cards. You wanted me to feel like staying was my choice. You accomplished that. But I need you to understand something. She met his eyes. I'm not staying because of half your assets. Not because you're Shenghui's owner. Not because you paved the road. Not because I won this game and I'm in a good mood. I'm staying because you were willing to spend 3 years, just so I could stand in front of you with my head up. Her voice trembled, but each word was steady.
Damien.
I left you 3 years ago not because you had no money. I left because you made me feel like you didn't care. You told me nothing, shut me out of your world, made me feel like a fool. Now you've laid every secret open, explained every piece of the game.
So, fine.
I'll stay. Damien's eyes reddened. This man, who overturned clouds and summoned rain in the business world, who spent 3 years constructing an impossible chess game, who fought 2 wars simultaneously and won both. His eyes reddened at those words. He blinked, forced the moisture back, voice still that controlled register. But the tail end trembled. You're right. I was arrogant, thought pushing you away was protecting you. I was actually stripping away your right to choose. It won't happen again. It better not. She rose from his chair, walked back around the desk, stood face to face. Because you have no more secrets to threaten me with. I've got your leverage, Mr. Shin. All of it. I know. He extended his hand. She looked down at it. Long fingers, knuckles defined. On the ring finger, that $30 silver band.
Clumsy design.
Edges worn bright against the expensive custom suit. Utterly out of place. You wore it the whole time? She asked. Never took it off. She was silent, then placed her hand in his. His palm was hot, slightly damp. The man who held everyone in his palm, his hand was sweating. Vivian.
Yeah.
Welcome back. She didn't say I'm back. Didn't say thank you for waiting. Just tightened her grip. Let the silver ring press between their palms. Hard.
Warm.
Carrying both their heat. Behind her, Mia sniffled, then broke, sobbing out loud. Ms. Zhou, you too, this is too much. I can't. Vivian turned. Her assistant was crouched beside the sofa, briefcase shielding her face, shoulders shaking, crying like a teenager watching her first romance drama. Mr. Chen silently pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, handed it to her. Richard Zhang finally peeled the handkerchief off his face. Sweat and tears mixed together. Looking more erect than Mia, Kyle Zhao pushed the door open. Took in the scene, his boss and boss's wife holding hands at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Mr. Chen offering a handkerchief to a sobbing girl. Richard Zhang melting into the sofa like spilled ice cream. Judgment confirmed. It's real. Kyle adjusted his glasses, voice still carrying unprocessed shock. Lucas Liu's team has been notified. Transition begins this afternoon. Good. Damien acknowledged, then tilted his head toward Vivian.
So, right now.
In this office. Who has the most shares? You do. And legally, half my shares belong to me.
So,
Practically speaking, who owns Shenghui? She considered. Half you, half me.
a tie.
And your company? Mine. My shares. Half mine. Add it up. She caught the loop he was circling, the smile spreading at the corner of his mouth. That makes you the majority, she said. You're really... So, for fairness, he cut in, tightened his grip on her hand. The boss's wife position. You'll need to fill it. Not ex-current. She stared at him for 3 seconds, then turned to Mia. Take a memo. Add an agenda item for this afternoon. Mia fumbled for her notebook, face still streaked with tears. Voice thick. Go ahead. Ms. Vivian Zhou and Mr. Damien Shen's marital relationship is formally reinstated, effective immediately. All assets in Mr. Damien Shen's name are subject to Ms. Vivian Zhou's irrevocable right of common ownership. This memo in duplicate. Filed with Shenghui Group Legal Department. Kyle Zhao paused, then whipped out his pen, scribbling in his notebook. Damien stood there, watching, eyes full of laughter. One more item. She added, Go ahead. Henceforth, all business cooperation between Shenghui Group and my company will strictly follow market-based competitive bidding principles. As Shenghui's boss's wife, I refuse any backdoor arrangements, favors, or resource paving. But Mia hesitated. Write it. Vivian said. Write it. Damien said. Mia scratched it down, closed the notebook,
Looked up at them.
eyes reddening again. Ms. Zhou, Mr. Shen, can I say one thing? Say it. You two are the most dysfunctional couple I've ever met. One beat of silence. Then Damien laughed. The sound echoed through the office, wrapped in rain, carrying far. Mr. Chen laughed too. Kyle Zhao pushed his glasses up, corner of his mouth bent. Richard Zhang hauled himself off the sofa, looked around with the face of a man who'd survived a disaster, lips trembling into a smile uglier than tears. Vivian looked down at their joined hands. The silver ring had left faint indentations on both their ring fingers. 3 years. 3 years ago, she thought she was leaving a deadweight. 3 years later, she knew he was never worthless. He just chose the stupidest possible way to wait for her to walk back on her own. Damien. The fake stamp thing. I'll settle that with you later. Whenever you're ready. She smiled, pulled her hand from his, turned toward the door, past Mia, patted her shoulder. Mia was still wiping tears. The pat made her stumble. Let's go. Back to the office.
What?
Why back to the office? Meeting. Vivian pulled the door open, looked back at Damien. He stood in the light and rain, eyes on her, deep as an ocean. This afternoon, the boss's wife is announcing a new partner, Shenghui Group. But you just said no backdoor deals. Who said anything about backdoor? I'm going on merit. I've got a quarterly trial contract personally approved by Mr. Shen. Whether I can upgrade it to an annual deal, that depends on my own ability. I'm betting you can. Damien's voice came from behind. I'm not betting. She stepped out, threw the last line over her shoulder, without turning. I don't need to bet, because I'm going to win. The elevator doors slid open at the end of the corridor. Before they closed, she glanced back at Damien. He stood deep in the long hallway, watching her, the most at-peace expression she'd seen on his face in all the years she'd known him.